being here. It's truly an honor to be on the stage with these fabulous musicians, and it really means a lot that all of you could make it today. I want to introduce the band first, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about this project. So first, all of us are USC students. We have 3 undergrads and 1 master's candidate. Is that the term? Yeah. And the first person I'd like to introduce is Ha-Young Park. She's our vocalist today. You can stand. And she's been reading these poems very expressively, and it's been wonderful to work with her. We also have Logan Kane over here on bass. We have Trevor Zemsef on drums. And on guitar, you haven't heard him yet, but you will shortly. We have Daniel McLaughlin. And seriously, I could not ask for better musicians than these 4 to work with. If you ask around the music school, these are the people that everyone says everyone's going to be listening to in 5 years or 2 years or right now. And it's just been such a pleasure to work with them, and in our rehearsals they've been so engaged and dedicated, and I really wanted to acknowledge them there. I also wanted to shout out to our production crew. We have Matt, Kyle, Mike, and Alex. They've been really helpful this morning getting everything set up and working with us. So with that, I promised Russ, my teacher, that I wouldn't turn this into a lecture, but I've been doing a lot of reading about multimedia for this, and I kind of had to share a little bit. So this is part of a longer thesis project, and this kind of leg of the project is combining my music with poetry by contemporary Korean poets, and then my translations of those poems. And one of the important texts in multimedia studies is by Nicholas Cook, and he wrote this study called Analyzing Musical Multimedia. And one of the things he shows is that when you think about multimedia, you might think that the artist's goal is to try to make all of the different media work together. And Cook has a term for this, which is conformance. And so that's when multiple media are kind of helping to tell the same story. His example of this, he works mainly with film. And so that'd be like if there's a clip of a butterfly, and then you hear some flutes going, something kind of fluttering underneath it, right? But what Cook shows us is that there are all sorts of other approaches that the artist can take. And at the other extreme, there's what he calls contest. So this is where one medium is telling one story, and then another one is kind of betraying it, or causing it to tell a different story than it might on its own. Cook's example of this is a horror movie where you have this pretty innocuous clip of a girl just walking down the street, right? But then there's this creepy music that underscores it, and that makes the whole scene suddenly feel kind of scary and tense. And that's one of his examples of this other end of the spectrum over here on the right. So I'm telling you all this because today, as we hear these different poems set to different kinds of music, I hope we can explore all the different parts of this spectrum. The poem that we just heard, I think, was farther over here on the left. So I was thinking pretty literally about like a lullaby and maybe the sound of the wind as it kind of wishes a nice nap to this baby squirrel. But later on, we're going to hear places where the music is sort of adding some new ideas or making new suggestions, new interpretations of the poetry. As a corollary to that, I've instructed all of the musicians, as well as our reader, Ha-Young, to bring their own interpretations to the table. So you may hear in there playing authentic emotional reactions to these poems, and that is very much on purpose. You can think of this less as a presentation of 6 poetic texts with some musical accompaniment, and more of a musical conversation about these poems and some of the issues that they raise. So with all that, we're going to move forward. Thank you all for being here, and afterwards there's going to be a light reception outside, so I hope you'll stay for that. Thanks.